Hi guys, yeah, thought I'd do another landscape editing video for you and show you one or two things in Lightroom that you've maybe not come across, but are a little bit obvious, but not so obvious if you get me drift, and I'll shut up because I'm rambling. Another shot, this one's from Jeff over at Vignette, and nice, exposed to the right perfectly, but we've got a bit of a problem because we've got this wind on the far side of the lake here. So what we're going to do is we're going to process this in a slightly unfamiliar way for you in Lightroom, and then we're going to get rid of that wind ripple over in Photoshop because you just can't do it in Lightroom. So what we're going to end up with is that nice, subtle, little bit pastel-y, little bit moody, and we're making something nice out of something that is potentially nice. But this is where a lot of people fail when it comes to being creative with their picture taking. They fail to recognise the good inside a raw file, and Lightroom doesn't do you any favours in helping you to realise that good when you look at the raw file freshly imported into Lightroom. So what am I going to do to this shot to get started? And before I do, I've got a request for you. Let me know in the comments below, because I've had one or two people say to me, Andy, can't you do some videos of you actually setting up and taking pictures? Well, I can't at the minute, but if I get a little bit of gear, like an Osmo Pocket or something like that, then yeah, I can do that. So let me know below if you'd like some location videos. Whoa! Andy on location in the great outdoors. Bloody hell, what a thought. Anyway, I shall have to clean my language up, won't I? So, right, so what we're going to do, I am going to use my straightforward process version swap preset, and now you can see it's flat, yeah, but we've got contrast under control, and we can start to see what colours we've got. Now, I fancy this image in my favourite landscape panoramic crop, which is 6x17 or 17x6. I much prefer it to 16:9 because it's the aspect ratio of the old panoramic film cameras. Oh, gorgeous. So the first thing I'm going to do before I do the crop is, because of what's coming in Photoshop to actually repair this wind ripple on the far side, I need to get that horizon as flat and as level as is possible. So I'm going to come into the lens corrections, and I'm going to enable profile corrections. And as you can see, Jeff shot this, he shot it on his 5D Mark IV with the 70-200 f4, very wise choice. But I'm actually going to remove the vignetting control because there isn't any, not really, and we're going to apply a vignette to this image, maybe more than one, don't know yet. The next thing I'm going to do is to come over to the transform, and I'm going to hit level, and now you can see it's leveled it up, or has it. Let's go and pull up the crop tool, and first of all let's just make sure it is level. I think it is, and we're going to go and select a custom, which you could enter here as 17x6. It just happens to save it as a custom crop factor there. So we're going 17x6 there, and I'm going to put the water on the 1/3 line. So we need to bring it down to there, and as you can see, it isn't level. So we are going to, I'll just use my mouse for this. We are just going to ease it over a little tiny bit. Let's just check that. Let's just take it out to maximise the canvas, and it looks pretty level. Which is the one thing I wish you could do in Lightroom, is to actually blow the image up while you've got the crop tool open. It sort of drives me a little bit potty, but well, there you go. And I think I might just inch the image down, because I just want that to be on the waterline, rather like that. And the only way we can check it is go ahead and click done, and I think it's looking all right. Yeah, right. So the next thing I'm going to do with this is I'm going to come to the details panel, and I'm going to go for single iteration deconvolution sharpening. So it's detail over to the right to 100, radius down to 0.5 for maximum halo reduction, and we will just lift up the sharpening a little bit to 44, and I'm quite liking that. Now then, this is where the first of the oddments in Lightroom comes in. You'll notice if we go into the basics panel, the only adjustments that are in the basics panel are what have happened due to my process version swap. So that's -1 on the exposure, -33 on the contrast, black's up to 25, and in the tone curve we've just got this little subtle normal inverted S-shaped tone curve. But in the basics panel we've got no texture, no clarity, no DAs, no vibrance and no saturation, and in the HSL panel we've got no saturation and no luminance adjustments. Right, remember that. We're going to come into the camera calibration panel. This is something that I rarely see demonstrated on YouTube, and it is simple. We've got red, green and blue primary channels. These are supposedly the inferred channels of your sensor. So what we're going to do is we're going to increase the saturation of red, and look how much more colour we're bringing out of that image. If we go and increase the saturation of green, now we're just making things just pop even more. This is where the shocker comes though, with blue. Now you wouldn't ostensibly think there was any blue in there, would you? But of course there is, because it's all light. So if we take up the saturation of blue, look how much saturation we get in the entire image. And what we could do is we could shift the greens a little bit more yellow. See, now if I go all the way over there, the greens really do go yellow and it looks horrible. But just around about there, that's not looking too bad at all. So we've left the red hue where it is and increased its saturation by +52. We've taken the green primary hue down to -7, but increased its saturation to +49, and the blue primary is still at 0 for hue, but is at +50 for the saturation. Now then, that is well saturated. So what we can do now is come over to the basics panel, and we can just get that saturation under control just by riding that saturation. But what we've done is we've changed the balance of reds, greens and blues in terms of saturation in the image, and we've changed the ratios. So when we turn the saturation down here, we get a much different result than if we turn the saturation down without going into the camera calibration panel, because the saturation ratios of the three channels are now different. So what else are we going to do? I think this detracts from the image, this reflection. Obviously it doesn't detract from the image in terms of what's in it, because it makes the image, but it does detract because it's a little bit light and a little bit too distinct. Now, what I'm going to do here is go and get a graduated filter. Now, we all know what happens to a graduated filter. If I put a graduated filter in here, everything above this line, the adjustments are 100% effective. From this line here down to the midline, it changes from 100% to 50% effective, and then from this midline down to this bottom line, it's 50% to 0% effective. Now then, watch this. Instead of leaving the filter somewhere on the image, what happens if I steepen it off, straighten it up somewhat, like that, and then drag it off the image? The rules for graduated filters still apply. So everything above this line is going to affect 100%. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to turn the exposure down a little bit, and I'm going to turn down the dehaze and maybe turn down the saturation just a little bit. Now, it's still affected all the image, but of course what I can now do is come in with a brush in erase mode, and I can go and show selected mask overlay, and now with a brush I can now take that away exactly where I want it to be taken away, and I can get a nice feather going just like that, and I might leave a little bit of it in the background right at the top of the image, or maybe I won't. No, we'll go and take it out. Yes, I feel a bit Bob Rossy doing all it. Bob Ross, can you remember Bob Ross? We'll just, they're painting that little tree there, and then we'll give him some friends. Yes, just like that. Yeah, I'll shut up. Yeah, I better. Okay, so now we're just going to click done on that, and so we've affected a subtle change on the reflection, or the bottom third of the image. I'm going to get another graduated filter now, and I'm going to bring this up from the bottom to the top, rather like that, and we'll hold the shift key down to keep it level. Now then, everything below this line, because I've gone up with applying the graduated filter, it's now the other way around. So below this line is 100% affected. Above this line is 0% affected. But all we're concerned with is this, because a lot of people say you can't put a custom vignette on an image in Lightroom. Oh yes, you can, and this is the way you do it. We'll take off the mask overlay so we can see what we're doing, and all we're going to do is turn the exposure down a wee bit like that. Might turn the contrast down, but add a little tiny bit of clarity, yeah, rather like that. But then we can go show selected mask overlay, and we can come in with a brush again, go into erase, and let's just drop the flow to the middle 80s. So we've got to do 2 passes to get 100% removal. And so I'm going to come along here, and I want to add the brightness back over this area more than anywhere else. Okay, and then what we can do is we can sort of come in here a little bit, rather like this, and then if we go over this image again here in this very bright bit, and then we drop the flow a little bit more, and then what we can do is we can gradually ease that vignette out, but it's going to adopt the shape of the red ruby leaf that's showing on the picture at the moment. So we're actually applying a custom vignette. So we go and uncheck show selected mask overlay. Now you can see we've got this subtle vignette going on in here, and so what we'll do is we'll go ahead and click done. So what we'll do now is we'll just scoot this straight over to Photoshop, where we will go and do some magic with the reflection. So I shall see you there in a minute. And so here we are inside of Photoshop. Now then, we've got to address this gap here, and this is going to look a little bit strange to you, but this is why I wanted to make sure that we got that waterline absolutely as level as possible. So let's take the image up to 100%, and then what I want to do is I want to drag a ruler guide down, and I want to put it just on the waterline there, rather like that. And then what we've got to do is we've got to check all across the image. That's looking all right. It's a little bit out, but for the sake of demonstration in this lesson, I'm going to use it as it is. So we're going to come back out to a fit to screen view. I might just go a little bit smaller so I can see what I'm doing. And I am going to get the rectangular marquee tool. Now the reason I've put that guide in there is that automatically by default, if we use something like the rectangular marquee tool, when it comes next to a guide, that's one of these blue lines, it'll snap to it, which is sort of what we want, because then we get a selection that goes up to that precise edge that we've just delineated with that blue guide. So we'll just drag across and then bump, and you saw it jump there and it snapped to the guide. So with that selection active, we're going to go Command or Control J, depending whether we're on a Mac or a Windows machine, and we jump in that selection to a new layer like that. Okay, right, so I'm now going to go View, Show, uncheck Guides, because I can never remember the keyboard shortcut for that. I'm going to get my Move tool, and then I'm going to go to Show, Transform, Controls. I'm going to put that pen down and use the mouse for a bit. Now, since the latest iterations of Photoshop have changed the default way you transform selections, we've now got to, by default, hold down the Shift key and then come to this top handle here and just click, hold and drag. Alrighty, and we'll drag down to probably about there, just to get a bit of stretch on the trees. So what we're doing is in effect faking the reflection. So I'm going to go and click the tick mark at the top to accept that transformation. Now the next thing I'm going to do is duplicate it, Command or Control J, because I need to do two things here. The new copy I'm going to turn off. I'm going to take the image up to 100%, and you can see the reflection sitting in there. I now need to blur that reflection. So we're going to go to Filter, and we're going to go to Blur, and we're going to go Gaussian Blur, and we're just going to stick 1 pixel's worth of Gaussian blur on it. That just breaks the detail up a little bit. So we'll click OK. In point of fact, this second copy, I'm actually going to delete that, and now I'm going to make a duplicate of this blurred image or blurred layer. So we'll go Command or Control J, and then I'm going to come to, with this new top one selected, so don't forget we've got Gaussian blur on this one. I'll just put GB on there, and then I'm going to put MB on that one so we can see what we're doing. And I'm going to go to Filter, Blur, and we're going to go to Motion Blur. Okay, and I'm going to add 65 pixels worth of motion blur in a -90 angle, so it's going vertically, and we're just going to go OK. Now what I need to do is to highlight both of these layers, and I need to put them in a group. So I'll highlight them both, right click on the little icon there on the top right hand corner of the layers panel, and I go new group from layers. I'm just going to leave this as group 1, and we'll click OK, because what that enables me to do is to put a layer mask on there. Now if we look at the waterline and then turn this group off, you can see there's just a little bit of fuzz that comes over the waterline in the landscape, just a little bit. So what I now need to do is, in this layer mask, I first of all need to draw a rectangle. So I'm going to get that ruler tool again, and we're just going to snap in there. Whoops a daisy. I need to go Edit, Undo New Guide. Yeah, that's the original guide that we put in before. I'm now going to come out to a fit to screen view so I can see what I'm doing. We're going to get the rectangular marquee tool again, and we're just going to draw a selection in there, let it snap to the guide. We're working inside the mask, so we just go Edit, Fill, and we fill with black. OK. So now we can get rid of that guide. Select, deselect, and get the Move tool again, and I can sort of lift that guide up there, and that's got rid of that one. Cool. I'll just undo Show Transform Controls. So if we go into the image at 100% now, you can see we've got a nice blur, but it doesn't affect the real shoreline. All it's doing is affecting the reflected shoreline. Now then, we also need to reveal the original reflection underneath this artificial one, because the artificial one, if you remember, is only being applied, or we only want to apply it to get rid of this narrow strip of highlighted ripple, which forms a horizontal barrier in the image and frankly looks crap. So we're going to turn that back on again. The only way we can now mask this out from the rest of the image is to put another mask on. But if we just go and add another mask to this layer or this group, all it's going to be is a vector mask. So we need to put this group inside another group. So this will be called group 2, and there we go. So if I now come out to a fit to screen view, working with layers and groups is really simple, but you have to be logical about it. Yeah, have to be logical about it. And what we'll do is we'll go and get our graduated fill tool, put a new group mask on there, and then we will go and just come in just underneath where that line of reflection will be, and we'll just click and drag and hold down the shift key, and of course I've got the colours the wrong way around, so we'll need to go and invert that, and there we go. Really super duper simple. If I now go Shift, Alt or Option, Command or Control E to put a stamped visible layer over the top of there, you could alternatively just flatten the image. But if we now go into it at 100%, and then just what we need to do is just look for a few imperfections, and let's just go and get the spot healing brush, and we can just paint in where we've got one or two staggers in these reflections, just to soften them off. But you'll notice we've now got the ripple back on the water, and all we've done is fill in that poxy, horrible, crappy looking gap there. So, you know, I mean, you can call it faking it if you like, but it's no more fakery than actually cloning something out of an image, and we all do that from time to time, don't we? You know, if we look across here, is there anywhere else where we might want to take something out? Well, that's entirely up to Jeff when he redoes this image. And if we just scoot right along here, yeah, that's all looking hunky-dory. And let's face it, you'd never know any different, would you? So if we go to Fit to Screen View, and we go File, and we go Save, and there it is, it's saving away 90%. Now it's done. Let's go back into Lightroom, and here it is. Yes. So I think what I'm going to do now is just go to the Effects panel, and I'm just going to put a fixed vignette on the image, just a little bit. So we might come down to -15, take the midpoint all the way down, take the feather all the way up, and then all we do is we're looking at this little navigator view, because you need to be able to see your vignette, and looking at this small image is a little bit like looking at your image printed big and hanging in a gallery, but you're by the front door and it's on the back wall. So you don't want your vignette to look blindingly obvious in this small image. So we might get away with bringing it down a little bit more. I think we'll be all right at that. Let's go back to the Basics panel. Let's add a little smidgen of clarity, a little smidgen of dehaze. Let's pull the highlights down to make it start looking a little bit less garish. Maybe pull a little bit of contrast out of it, not much. And then what should we do? Let's try adding a little bit of vibrance. Yes, look at that. So there you go. I mean, at the end of the day, we've acquired that image from that raw file. So, you know, I mean, if we just go and select them both, go over to the library module, let's go into the contrast and compare, and let's tab out. Can you believe we've got that image from there? Using a fancy bit of Photoshop, graduated filters in a position a lot of you might not have tried, and the camera calibration panel to actually change the ratio of reds, greens and blues present in the image without going anywhere near the vibrance or the saturation or indeed the HSL panel. So there we go, guys and gals. Hope you've enjoyed that video. Hope you found something, got something useful out of it, and if you've enjoyed it, give us a thumbs up, give us a comment below, and don't forget, let me know in the comments below if you want me to do more photography as opposed to processing videos. So there we go. Until the next time, I shall see you soon. Stay well, stay safe, keep taking the pictures, Tooroo.